not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Flagrant Howls live at Target Center, where the Timberwolves close out the Golden State Warriors in 5. It was indeed Wolves in 5 again, and the Minnesota Timberwolves are headed to the Western Conference Finals for the second straight year and for the third time in franchise history. Sports dad Judd Zulgad and Phil Mackey inside the arena here. Mustached executive producer Declan Goff inside his 55-degree basement at home. Gentlemen, it's funny. Judd and I were saying for one of the most monumental nights in franchise history, because it's been 21 years since they closed out anyone at Target Center in any playoff series. Yeah. So this doesn't happen a lot in franchise history. Only the third trip to the Western Conference Finals. It felt kind of anticlimactic because the Wolves were in control most of the night. The biggest pop, Judd, who's like 15 feet to my right over here, was the Chick-fil-A pop with, I don't know, a minute and a half left in the fourth quarter.
Of course it was, because it always is. If a guy misses 2 free throws, there's nothing that beats that, Phil. No. Nothing. Free Chick-fil-A tomorrow for everybody here.
There's nothing more embarrassing than when the chicken dance is raining down as your season comes to an end at Golden State.
Yeah. I hate that dance, but I digress.
Yeah, it was like the crowd's doing the chicken dance, celebrating free Chick-fil-A, while Draymond and Jimmy are shaking hands with teammates they won't see until training camp. So we're going to dive into it all. There's a lot to dissect, just sort of big picture, as the Wolves are now halfway through this playoff grind. There is a wide open path, more than maybe people expected. So we can talk about all those things. A shout out to Brixworth in the North Loop. Brixworth has been an awesome partner of ours. In fact, I was just hanging out with our guy Cooper today, the owner of Brixworth and Blackstack, and Safe and Brook. They do an amazing job in the North Loop for Timberwolves fans. They also have that signature Nasreed Hazy IPA. They got some of the best dry rub wings and Detroit-style pizza. But here's our special announcement. Because the Wolves have closed this thing out, and they got a few days to prepare for the Western Conference Finals, we figured let's do our first ever Flagrant Howls Unplugged live podcast taping this Monday, May 19th. Ignore that graphic that says March 19th. It's May 19th at Brixworth in the North Loop from 5 to 7 p.m. Flagrant Howls Unplugged. Come hang out with us. Enjoy the Nasreed Hazy IPA. So, again, a reminder, Brixworth in the North Loop, Monday, May 19th, 5 to 7 p.m. at Brixworth. And let's talk some Wolves. Let's preview the Western Conference Finals and talk about this thing. Judd, one more shout-out before we dive in here. MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, if you could.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, the air conditioning part right now, incredibly important because, it's getting hotter and hotter. It's going to get humid, and the one thing that you don't want is to find out your AC is on the fritz. And I'm going to tell you right now, MSP Plumbing, Heating and Air, they are the people to go to. I've been talking for a couple months now about the fact that Sports Dad allowed them in my house. They did a fantastic job. You know what? Because they deliver every single time. Check them out, 651-615-4292, or call MSP.com is their website. Call MSP.com. MSP Plumbing, Heating and Air, as reliable as it gets, and you need the air working right now.
More reliable than Declan's graphic
that was not my graphic work.
I know.
Declan.
Hands are clean on that
one. He did not do the graphic.
I'm gonna defend Dex. Dex misspells things. Dex does not get months wrong.
Thank you. Okay, it would have been YA. Okay, it would have been
exactly, which is fine.
MYA.
Which is fine. That's not a dig, but I'm saying you rarely make factual mistakes.
Thank you. I just spell things incorrectly. Thank you.
It's okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, man. So, all right, let's, Judd, what was your biggest takeaway from Wolves closing out the Warriors here in Game 5?
You sort of brought it up. It's how, and I mean, it's not surprising once Steph went out, but how inevitable this felt tonight. Like, the Wolves, we could certainly talk about what the Wolves are doing well and what they probably need to hone in a little bit on for the Western Conference Finals, which I'm hoping is against the Thunder. But my biggest takeaway was, just the expectation that the Wolves were going to win. They did. And I guess individually, the one thing that I keep coming back to, guys, is this. Julius Randle, what a series. Like, Julius Randle at every turn in this series was phenomenal. Veteran presence, did everything, was a perfect fit. And so, like, that is racking my brain. I cannot think of another athlete in this town who has changed the narrative about himself, and not just done it in season, but done it into a playoff run. Like, you're talking the Western Conference Finals right now. So, but my biggest takeaway was how inevitable this felt, because it's still the Wolves, and it's like, it's the Wolves, but yeah, it did.
Yeah, let's. Well, no, Dex, what's your biggest takeaway? Let's hear that, and then we can get into some Julius Randle stuff pretty early here too. But go ahead, Dex.
Yeah, I mean, Julius was once again absolutely incredible. The Wolves in control this entire game. You know, I sources said that Julius left the court saying, "You bleeping need me, and you can't win without me." And Randle left those teammates and coaches speechless. He dominated the gym in every way, and Julius is back. Timberwolves in 5, so that ends up working pretty dang well. I mean,
see what you did there.
Yeah, that was pretty clever, right? This was not like a super sharp game from Ant. A lot of turnovers, and there were turnovers from Julius tonight. Like, he stacked up, I think, 5 or 6 turnovers, but there was a lot of productivity in there too. And it just goes to show that, hey, like, people have been trying to build these super teams forever, and that's been maybe the blueprint. And look, the Wolves will have to figure out maybe some interesting contract situations in the offseason with the future of Julius opting out or opting in, or Naz Reid, etc. But the Wolves' depth, despite their superstar having kind of a shaky night, ends up not mattering because they close out the Warriors in 5, and now they're once again back in the Western Conference Finals, which is something pretty crazy to think for a Minnesota sports franchise that's now gone back-to-back here in the conference finals.
Yeah, for just like a micro observation, Ant was a little lackadaisical tonight. His handle was sloppy. He had some bad turnovers. I mean, Ant had 7 of them. Julius got a little squirrely with his handle. But the fact that the Timberwolves turned the ball over 20 times and gave up 18 offensive rebounds to Golden State and still ran away with really pretty little doubt. I mean, the Warriors cut it to like 9 at one point. It just, at the end of the day, maybe Steph Curry helps this series get to a 6th game, maybe a 7th game. I don't think the Warriors were winning this series with Steph Curry. That's what Warriors fans are going to say. It's going to be the asterisk that they put next to this Western Conference semifinals. But the Wolves' size, their athleticism, their shooting, I mean, it's kind of crazy because the Warriors are this all-time great shooting organization going back 12 years, when Klay Thompson was there too. And, they literally are inept at making three-point shots without Steph Curry on the floor. Tonight, it was another grind for them. They hoisted up 39. They only knocked down 11 of them. But so, I mean, the Warriors are very well coached. The Warriors still play very hard-nosed, tough defense. They kind of go in and out of that zone, but the Timberwolves were the better team. The Timberwolves, I think, would have been the better team with Steph Curry. Let's do a Julius Randle conversation, though, because that's where Judd started this thing out. I can't think of another Timberwolves player whose stock has gone from where Julius Randle's was kind of right before the trade deadline, and even he will admit he didn't fully know how to integrate himself into this team, but sitting for a couple of weeks and observing, huge credit to him for finding a way to use all of his skills within the context of the Timberwolves offense and defense and pecking order, clearly slotting in as a complement to Anthony Edwards, but then providing that scoring punch as needed. How many times this series, and even in the Lakers series, did the Wolves go cold from the three-point line, or they go 6 or 7 minutes of an offensive lull, and it's Julius Randle putting his shoulder into somebody 3 or 4 times, getting to the free throw line. I mean, he's literally gone from they're going to trade him for sure in February, right, to being, I don't know, one of the 5 best Timberwolves players of all time when we do our new top 100 list sometime this offseason. So major credit to Julius Randle, Judd.
I don't think there has been a player among the professional sports teams in this town that we follow the closest, the Twins, the Wild, the Wolves, and the Vikings, who has had in season this big of change. Like, I'm trying to think of, guys that emerged. I mean, Julius went from, he literally didn't fit in. And what's weird about this too is I don't know that we've ever had a player in this town among the teams I just mentioned get hurt and it was more productive. Like, I do not know if he continued to play. I don't know if the light goes on. He missed, I think, 15 games or so. And it's just clear that he sort of watched and processed and came back from that. And in my opinion, he came back as a different player because he accepted his role. And his role in Chris Finch's, I think, vision was a very, very productive role on this particular team. So, yeah, I've been trying to think of this. Like was there a Twins player Don Baylor was traded for at the deadline in '87, helped him win a World Series, but that was just a trade of a guy that came in late. Like Julius Randle literally looked like a non-fit, and now it's not just he's a fit. He is a instrumental part. To your point on Curry, I don't know if the Timberwolves win this series if you undo the Cat trade.
Boy,
like if Curry, well,
I mean, you know how I feel about the Cat trade.
And just to be clear, I'm saying if Curry plays, if Curry does not get hurt, and you undo the trade, and now Cat's here against Curry and the Warriors, I don't know that the Wolves win the series.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, even tonight, everyone is just writing the Knicks a pass to the Eastern Conference Finals because they were up 3-1 and Jason Tatum tore his Achilles. Well, Karl gets into foul trouble again, and he has to sit for chunks of the first half, only plays like 29 minutes. They get smoked by a Jason Tatum-less Celtics team. Julius has had there's been a couple turnover things throughout the postseason, but this has been an awesome 12 games by him. And I think when you combine playmaking, toughness, you and I were talking during the first half, he's got that get a bucket button he can push from the paint, from that mid-range. I mean, he can knock down Karl's a better shooter, obviously, percentage-wise. I mean, Karl's one of the greatest 7-foot shooters of all time. But when it comes to getting your offense in other places on the floor, Julius is more reliable. You need a bucket right now, and it can't be a three. It's got to be the hard way. You got to get into the paint. You got to put your shoulder into somebody. Julius has a move set. Julius has a bag he can go to when things aren't clicking. And Karl, once in a while, he's got some different things. That little runner, the floater, little hook shot, but it's a lot of offensive fouls and flailing. So, and then, by the way, the other component to that trade, Dante DiVincenzo probably had his best playoff game in a Timberwolves uniform tonight, knocking down threes. He was all over the place. I think he was like a +10 at one point. I don't have the box score right in front of me. And you get the 13th overall pick, or whatever it is, whatever the Pistons pick wound up being. So, yeah, it's kind of funny that the people that were clowning it as one of the worst trades in recent NBA history, how could you do this? Back to the original question, could you imagine undoing that trade right now, going into the Western Conference Finals? If given a chance, you wouldn't think of it because you'd be making your team worse.
I think in some ways, too, at the end of the day, once it took hold, Julius is a better fit for what Chris Finch wants as well. Like, it's very clear. When the trade was made, Finch went out of his way, and Julius did too, to talk about their time together with the Pelicans. And at first it's like, really, that's not really the fit I see. But when you think about it, what Julius does is exactly what Finch wants. And look, Cat was, I saw a comment, Cat had a very productive role in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs last season. He played some really good defense. This is not to take away from Cat or bash him. This is to say, I think it's just a better fit. And there has, in the last, in every Wolves playoff appearance in the recent era, there has never been a series that felt like this. Phoenix did eventually, but it also was, the Suns, it's Durant, and then the Wolves swept them. But this one to me felt like a veteran team that knew exactly, in the Wolves, that knew exactly what they were doing, dismantling a team. And you can say, well, Curry didn't play, but it's still Steve Kerr, who's a really good coach. It's a team that plays hard. So when you look at the entire thing, it's weird because the Wolves do drive me crazy in their sort of sporadic play, up and down. At times they seem to fall asleep. But there were other elements, in my opinion, about this series that were very professional, very veteran, very dismantling, which I liked. So it's weird that I will I think the most important thing, though, is in the Western Conference Finals, there is going to be need to be more consistency. The Wolves are going to need to be a more consistent team because I don't know if you can get away with the spurts of sort of falling asleep that this team did in this series. And it's bothersome because it goes back to some of the same problems that we saw in the regular season.
Yeah.
How many times throughout the series against Golden State and throughout the Lakers were you guys just kind of like dumbfounded and frustrated with the Timberwolves? I know they've won, obviously, they won 5 games back-to-back series, so they played 10 games. I mean, even in the maybe game 1 against Golden State, you could have been frustrated, but it's game 1, and so if you're going to drop it, that's the one to lose. I can't remember a time in this series where I really was like yelling at the TV and their classic fourth quarter collapses that they were doing throughout the regular season the last 3 minutes. That hasn't happened yet. To Judd's point, though, like them trying to do that or using that same recipe in the conference finals and the NBA finals, they can't have the turnovers and that type of stuff if they are indeed going to win this whole damn thing.
Well, there's been, in terms of like a full game, maybe twice where you're like, what was that? Because they've had a couple, the shooting performances that they had, the one against the Lakers, and they had another couple clunkers against the Warriors. So there's been sometimes, it's more the stretches within the games. But that's the other crazy thing is they just gentlemen swept LeBron and Luka, and then gentlemen swept a Warriors team that was without Steph Curry, but still the best defensive team in the NBA, and made it look really easy by the end. They haven't brought their A game to the playoffs yet. Now you could counter and say, yeah, well, the Warriors defense makes it so that your A game is unattainable. Like you're going to look kind of clunky in stretches against that defense and the way they close out and fly around, and the fact that they're putting fresh legs on the court at the very least, even if the guys are just out there clanking threes. But the scary thing is the Wolves. What if the Wolves put together like a 2-week stretch where they're like kind of like Indiana lately, where it's like, wow, shots are falling, the turnovers are reduced. If they tap into like their 90th percentile as a team, because I don't think they've come close very often in the 12 games the 10 games I guess they've played in the playoffs so far.
Yeah, I think there have definitely been quarters of greatness. Game 4, third quarter was phenomenal, and that's enough. I think, though, to what you're talking about, that's not going to be enough to probably beat the Thunder. So the question is, because I mean, you're going to have spurts. Basketball is a game of spurts. You're going to have spurts where you're not as sharp. I get that. But I feel there's a difference between not being as sharp for a period of basketball and looking like you fell asleep, which is sort of what they tend to do at times. In the conference finals, I would hope that's still not a problem. I mean, it's the conference like this. And of all people, you know, this goes back to the Timberwolves are now back where Ant said he learned so much, right? You got to Dallas last year, and to Ant's point, it's like I was tired. I didn't realize, you know, as Phil, as the PA guy said tonight, when they talked about the end of this series, he said we're halfway there. Like that's the thing to keep in mind. It feels like a lot, right? Like these playoffs have been going on for quite some time. You're only halfway there. So like you got to put your big boy pants on now and realize that you've got 8 wins potentially left to get. And they are going to be probably far harder than the first 8 wins were.
I wanna put a pin in that thought about that they're halfway.
Take it offline. Do what you want with it.
We'll circle back, take it offline. But I want to answer this question here first from Evergreens11 in the YouTube comment section. And by the way, thank you guys. There's like 4,000 people here right now hanging out with us, closing out this second round of the playoffs. If you're new, welcome in. This is Flagrant Howls, part of the Score North network of Minnesota sports podcasts. Click that like button and the subscribe button on the Score North YouTube channel. If you're listening on demand, maybe on Apple or Spotify, if you give us a 5-star rating and a positive review, you can help us keep growing this thing. And a reminder, on Monday night, 5 to 7 p.m. at Brixworth in the North Loop, the first ever Flagrant Howls Unplugged event. We'll just be chopping it up with you guys, and there it is. Look at that. Look at that swift graphic change there. You can't even. I think you're muted there, Judd. You can't even. Yeah, you can't even see that it's a different font, different color.
Yeah, look at that, huh?
Nice work.
Coming off the bench for some productive minutes here. Okay, that's what that is.
Is that black electric tape behind the? It's good. But so Evergreens11 says, love the show. Check it out every day, but stop it with the cat hate, man. Last year we beat harder teams with him, Durant and Jokic. I'll give you that second part, that Denver team was much more fully stocked. Obviously, they weren't missing Jokic for 4 games with an injury, so I'll give you that versus the Warriors. But the reason why it's a talking point is because when that trade was made, a vast majority of commentators, fans, both locally and nationally, clowned the trade, literally called it a franchise crippling trade, a dangerous mistake from a roster building standpoint to not run that team back. And it was laughable to even suggest that they would go back to the Western Conference Finals in year 2. And here they are, a deeper team, I think a tougher team. And we'll see, because they're going to wind up playing either a really good Denver team or Oklahoma City. And to Judd's point, they are only halfway home. But it was one of the biggest trades in recent NBA history, and it warrants coming back to it now that we're sitting here in the middle of May at the same point that they were last year. They made it back, and their roster is in better shape. Like I said, they're deeper, they're more flexible. It was a brilliant trade. And the fact that people keep looking at Tim Connelly every other year and basically saying it's the Herschel Walker trade again, what's this guy doing? I think Tim Connelly has proven he knows how to build a championship caliber roster.
And in this case, it's not hate, though. Like you can't.
It's discussion.
And you can't not talk about what Julius has meant. Like, he has been. If you were to pick an MVP of the first 2 rounds for the Timberwolves so far, the discussion is Ant and Julius might get it. So, like, that's the difference here is what he has done, and I think you hit on the most important thing, because Cat's a very talented player. But I think you said the most important thing, which is this: they're a tougher team. They're mentally tougher. They're physically tougher. They are a tougher team. Julius Randle, I mean, that's the one thing that I liked in the very small sample size that I saw him playing for the Knicks. He is a tough player. Do not tell me that Carl is. He's not a tough player. He's a very talented dude, but he's not a tough player at all. And the playoffs require a level of toughness that, and I think it's important too, because a guy like Julius, with his style of play, challenges the entire roster to play like that. You watch these games, they ain't pretty, but it's not about pretty. It's not about style points. It's about, can you get in the mud? Can you get in the muck and grind out a win? And that's what the Wolves have done. And dare I say that with Carl, I'm not saying the games might have been more aesthetically pleasing. I just don't know that you're successful.
Yeah. I mean, think about from a leadership standpoint, Tim Connelly, the position he's in. And by the way, same thing when he took over the franchise back 3 years ago when they went to the playoffs for the first. It was the second playoff appearance since 2004 when he took over the franchise with D'Lo and Jared Vanderbilt was still here. In both cases, if you were to have polled fans or people on the outside, would you make a franchise-shaking trade this offseason? In both instances, people would have said, no. Just hey, listen, you got to this point, run it back again, see what happens, right? And in both instances, he said, no, I'm looking 5 moves ahead on the chessboard. I'm looking around 2 different corners, and I'm looking at this in a way that you maybe aren't, person on a microphone or casual fan. And then there's a slow start, or in the first season, they barely scratched their way into the playoffs. But it takes balls to make trades like that, knowing that you're right, taking the backlash from fans and media because it's the unorthodox thing to do. When you go to the Western Conference Finals, you don't dismantle your team. You don't trade one of your key pieces. But he said, nice run. We've reached our peak with this team. If Tim Connelly thought that keeping the roster intact the way that it was would have led the Wolves back to the Western Conference Finals or beyond, never would have made the trade. It would have been foolish to make the trade. But he correctly said, we've gone as far as we can with this nucleus, and if we make this trade, it'll set us up better. We might even get back to where we are, but it'll set us up better either immediately or in 2 or 3 years with the different pieces and the contracts to make the next move. So just brilliant front officing from the Gobert trade, which made Anthony Edwards a playoff player immediately instead of toiling for 5 years like some of these other young players in the league. Like LaMelo Ball Like, what's that guy doing in May? What was Zach
golf.
LaVine doing for all these years?
Playing golf.
Right. But to bring in Gobert 3 years ago and say, we're going to make this a playoff team, right? We're going to make this a 50-win team that can go deep in the playoffs, and then we're going to make this trade sending Karl Anthony Towns out because I know it's the right move in the face of criticism. I don't know, man. Just brilliant front officing all around for 3 years.
And to do it on the eve of training camp. I mean, you talk about balls. It's one thing.
The timing wasn't ideal.
No, but I'm saying
yeah.
but like that's gutsier because you are literally you are making a trade where it's like, what are you doing? And the thing too is, we can talk about Nas with the player option, Julius as well, but the most important free agent in this building right now after the season is Tim Connelly. Like, Tim Connelly becomes the most important, and I think he's expressed a desire, hopefully that's the case, to return. But when you look at what the vision is and what this guy has done, there is nobody more important who potentially can explore the market right now that works or plays for this team than Tim Connelly. Because that's all him.
This is from Opta Stats. It just came through. The Timberwolves are the first Minnesota-based MLB, NBA, NFL, or NHL team to be among the final 4 teams remaining in the playoffs 2 years in a row since, Judd, do you know when?
No.
Wow.
I gave it to Judd because I think Judd should know. I don't think Phil will know.
It means it's hockey probably, right? Well, they wouldn't have gone. Is it hockey? Is it early 80s?
Since the North Stars in 1980 and 81.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's a good one.
They went to the conference finals and then in the Stanley Cup finals.
And the Stanley Cup. So it's
Right?
been 40 plus years since a men's professional sports team here in town of the MLB,
Wow.
NBA, NFL, or NHL has made it to their
crazy.
respective conference finals in consecutive seasons.
We should hang that banner here. It's
We
kind of
should.
sad still.
Put it
You're
behind
looking
here,
up.
actually.
There's just like the Lynx have like 4 retired jerseys back here.
That'd be
4
awesome if they just
championship banners. We should hang that.
hung that thing. I love it.
So many other things to get to here. I have a couple just as we look ahead. Let's take the pin out of that. Their 8 wins away thing, and come back to a couple discussions. But Judd, why don't you tell our friends here in the audience? Maybe they've got the itch to go play basketball again, but their bodies have been ravaged for years and years. Neos Elite Performance is a place you can turn to, perhaps.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, if you are, let's say a golfer, and now your body hurts, right? And you can't go out and golf. I've got the answer for you, and it comes right to your home. Neos Elite Performance does an outstanding job, and what they are going to do is get you back on track with what they call white glove service, which means no trips to the hospital, the doctors. They come to you. It's cutting edge stuff. It's absolutely outstanding. In fact, if you're watching this right now, you can see some former players use this. Why? Because it works, and now they want it to work for you. NeosElite.com, Neos Elite Performance. Go to the website, check it out, and you are going to find out exactly what the advancements that they are doing can mean for you.
Also, Dex, a shout out to our friend Heather, Wolves Realtor Heather.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe you're a Timberwolves fan and you're looking at this team. You're like, I want to buy. I want to buy right now. In fact, I want to buy my first house. That's how confident I am with buying things right now. But you have no idea where to start. Our friend Heather can help you with that. So if you're thinking about buying, selling, or even just wondering what your house is worth, contact our friend Heather. You can go to wolvesrealtor.com. It's the simplest domain as you can possibly get. You can get a free consultation. She's a diehard season ticket holder, so you can talk Wolves with her. You can figure out what your home's worth. You can figure out the process of maybe buying that first home. If you're a Timberwolves fan and you're in the market to maybe buying or selling a home, highly recommend contacting our friend Heather at Exit North Star Realty. Go to wolvesrealtor.com to learn more.
So we're still waiting on the OKC Denver series to wrap up here. Denver down 3-2. And then over in the Eastern Conference, Indiana waits for the winner of the New York-Boston series. Indiana, the Wolves kind of saw some flashes there in the regular season. That team plays hard. They play with pace, both offensively and defensively. They pick ball handlers up full court, 3/4 court. So Indiana remains a problem. Because I'm no longer just looking at the Western Conference here, boys. I'm looking at the whole thing because they're 8 wins away. There is a path here that maybe didn't exist before the playoffs started because of the injury to Jason Tatum with Boston. Now, Boston fought back tonight and forced a Game 6, and that's still a damn good team without Jason Tatum. But I guess my take here, Judd, is there's nothing insurmountable standing in the Timberwolves' way throughout the rest of the bracket. There's good teams, and Oklahoma City's probably the favorite, but there's nothing that I would consider insurmountable. There's no dynasties. There's no there's like Boston, for instance. You look at them and say, well, that's the team at the top of the NBA mountain when they're fully stocked, even if they were struggling against New York. Well, Tatum's out. So the path is as open as it possibly can be. Probably more open than it's been in Timberwolves franchise history, don't you think?
And you've got a star player. And a guy in Julius who's playing like one. Absolutely. I think what we're looking at here is a conversation that we've basically been having since January or before that, which is the Wolves' biggest opponent is themselves. Like they are their own, at times they're their own best friend, and at times they are their own worst enemy. And on any given night, any given quarter, you don't know exactly which one it's going to be. But yeah, it's not, often it feels like you're going to run into a player and you just are like, you're probably screwed, right? Like LeBron in his prime, Kobe in his prime. Those when the Wolves played the Lakers in the playoffs way back when, you didn't really feel good about it. This does not feature a team like that. And so I think the most important thing, though, is no matter who you play in the next round, and then, knock on wood, if you advance, the most important thing is you can't afford the luxury of having long spells where you just sort of have your head up your rear end and then say, oh, here we come. Yeah. I think you could afford it a little bit in this series, but the reality is the Wolves have a golden opportunity here if they can get that out of their system. And that becomes the biggest question. Again, I think there's a difference between struggling for a bit and not playing great and falling asleep. And it's the falling asleep that cannot happen.
When you even look at some of the best players, I'm looking at the Ringers, just their latest top 100 updated rankings. They did this like a month ago, right before the playoffs started. And obviously Denver is still in this thing. They've won a championship. Joker's still there. But you look around, and let's say it's the Thunder and the Wolves, and maybe even obviously the Knicks and the Pacers. All the remaining star players, right? The Halliburtons, the Shea, who's having obviously an insane year, Anthony Edwards. You look around, and the stars of those teams have never done it before. Big assumption if Denver doesn't get there, I know that. But if it's Thunder, Minnesota, and New York Knicks, Pacers, those four remaining teams have their superstar players. They might have obviously guys that have won titles that are role players and have been there and done that have never experienced this. And that is a huge, in my opinion, a huge advantage to the Wolves and just championship DNA.
Well, I don't know if it's an advantage for the Wolves because they also haven't, it's not like Anthony Edwards has, none of the Wolves have championship DNA either, but at least it kind of, it levels the playing field from, none of them have the answers to the test. Jokic has the answers to the test. Boston, even without Tatum, has some of the answers to the test. And the further you go, the harder the grind becomes, and teams that looked incredible in rounds 1 and round 2, like the Timberwolves, can kind of crumble a little bit, whether it's fatigue or scouting. But I think in a roundabout way, you made a point there, Dex, that Judd and I were talking about in the third quarter tonight, which is we've kind of hit a soft, I don't know if soft's the right word. We've hit like a transition place in the NBA right now where we are moving into the post-LeBron, Steph, post-Durant era. I know those guys are all still alive and playing basketball, and they were all, well, Durant wasn't in the playoffs. But we're moving past that era. We haven't quite gotten to the Wemby era. If you think that Wemby at some point is going to take over as the next LeBron, he's still probably 2 years away maybe. Now, if they add Giannis, it might expedite that. But there's kind of an opening. And then you'd say, well, the Celtics are the team right now, but Tatum's out. So there's this soft spot in the NBA where there's no dynasty. There's the players that have carried this league for the last 15, 20 years are fading out and being eliminated by the Timberwolves, by the way. Mm-hmm. And the only team that sits atop with the answers to the test is missing one of the top 6 or 7 players in the NBA. So it just openings like this, because what if the Spurs trade for Giannis and Wemby all of a sudden becomes like the best player in the NBA in the next year or two, and that team's in the Western Conference? That could very well happen in 2025-26. You don't get many chances. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying the Wolves are even supposed to be odds-on favorites, but there is a really interesting opportunity in front of them right now over the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Well, yeah, but when you look at SGA with Thunder or Ant here too, you've got the opportunity to become to solidify yourself instead of talking about it. Ant's great. Well, yeah, he is great, but instead of talking about it, you have the chance now to give yourself an opportunity to become that championship DNA. That's my thing is you got a lot of aging players here, and they've been great stories, and ESPN and the networks love them. Steph's a great story. LeBron, I mean, go down that entire list. But yeah, those guys are aging out, and there's nothing to stop that. You can't stop that. So I think what this does is, yes, it's a soft spot, but it's a soft spot that for a guy like Ant could become a very strong spot. What is to stop the Timberwolves from especially Ant having learned from the Western Conference Finals last year, making it through, winning a championship, and that becomes part of their culture now. So because I think a soft spot's, Phil, in a way, the early 2000s, those terrible series like the Nets, and the Spurs were really good, but those series sort of just stunk, and it didn't feel like there was, if I recall this correctly, necessarily star power against star power. What is to stop a guy like Ant from picking up that mantle now and running with it? And then our conversation is, well, the Timberwolves were a real problem for 5 years now.
You know what? It kind of feels like a little bit. What was the Heat won a championship in was it 05?
With Shaq and Wade.
Yes, where it was they obviously had, but Shaq kind of at the twilight of his career.
Yeah.
But Dwayne Wade as the Anthony Edwards, that high energy, that combo guard player. But the Michael Jordan era had come to an end a few years prior, and Kobe and Shaq broke up, and that's why Shaq went to the Heat. And so Kobe was kind of left there for 3 years to just hunt for scoring titles while they tried to figure out how to get Pau Gasol a couple years later. But we hadn't yet emerged into the LeBron James era. He was in the league, but he was 2 or 3 years away from really being that guy, kind of where Wemby is right now. Dwayne Wade stepped into the void. Yep. And thanks to Shaq and a couple other players on that team that helped. But again, thanks to Rudy, Julius Randle, you got to have a supporting cast. So it kind of feels a little bit like Dwayne Wade from 20 years ago.
And this has a chance now. I mean, Ant can take an incredibly important step now in his second consecutive year in the conference finals in cementing his legacy and starting it, right? Because Ant's been, he's still, 23. Now, I do say this. He's played a long time in the league now. So, if it's go time, that's awesome. It should be probably. But this is the type of thing where we go from talking about what Ant can do and how great he can be to, oh, no, he is great. He just won a championship. So the soft spot is interesting to me because what I see here is an opportunity to grab success and grab your resume building in a huge way championship, and that's what Jalen Brunson, Halliburton, Ant, SGA, and those are four pretty damn good names.
I actually still think the Celtics could beat the Knicks in 7 games, but let's assume the Knicks go through. You're right. One of those 4 dudes is going to get to that level this year in a month.
Yeah.
Why not Ant? So I'll flip the question back to you guys. Do you think Ant, as the leader of this team at 23 years old, do you think he has that ability right now? Or is he going to learn another hard lesson either in the Western Conference Finals or the Finals and apply it to something in 2 or 3 years from now? Is he ready right now?
Because I think yes. The answer to the question is yes. Not even to work around it. Because even when I look at Shea, Shea's probably going to win MVP, right? He's probably going to win NBA MVP, but he's got a great supporting cast around him. And if he doesn't have his A game, his teammates can help him out. I think there are, even with some clunkers from Ant, or not even clunkers, I think that's the wrong word. It's just some ineffective games from Ant throughout these postseason that other guys have been able to step up. But Ant, regardless, when those finals lights come on and it's, the last two teams standing, you can't necessarily just, oh, well, Julius is going to back us up, or we're going to get a big game from Mike Connelly from 37 years old, finally hitting some shots tonight. Your star has to show up. And I think he does have that. I think he is on the precipice of graduating into that next class of stars.
I think as far as the Western Conference Finals go, for sure. The finals, that's another challenge. But do I think that Ant has the intangibles now? Because he's got the skill. To me, it becomes the intangibles. Does he have the intangibles to win a championship? And I will say this. The story at halftime of Game 4 of this series, where he went in and laid into his teammates and said, we're acting like we've won this damn thing. We still need to win 2 games. And got the response he wanted. Those are the type of things, because those are also, for as much as we talk about like Jordan, right? And how great Jordan was and how the skills are transferable to Ant in some ways. I think it's also what we don't talk about enough is the desire and just that SOB that lives within you to MF your teammates, but it works and they actually appreciate it. And so, yes, I think that Ant, he's going to mature more. Don't get me wrong, totally. But I do think that he has graduated to a place where, would I be shocked if the Wolves went to the finals? No, I wouldn't. And I do think, to your point, Phil, in the finals, you're going to run into a really good team, but it certainly, again, would not be a team where you said, yo, man, this is a bridge too far. They're going to lose for sure.
I would say I think he needs to take his game from the first 10 playoff games to another level if they're going to win a championship. He's got to find a way to score more. I know that some of these teams are game planning the ball out of his hands, and he's been making the right play and opening things up for teammates. So there's a balance between when do you hit the gas pedal as a scorer versus getting open looks for teammates, and he's done a really good job usually of figuring out that balance. But I do think if they're going to win the NBA championship, the LOB, his game has to go up a notch from where it's been. The turnover stuff, some of the inefficient, like the 0 for 10 3-point games, like it's going to be tough to win a title with some of that stuff mixed in. And the other thing I wonder about is, remember a year ago when they got beat by the Mavericks and Anthony Edwards admitted, I didn't really know from a conditioning standpoint what went into all this, because you don't know what you don't know, and you tack on these extra 20 games or whatever it is, and your body feels different. What did he learn from that? We're going to find out how much did he prepare over the past 12 months, USA basketball. Yep. How much gas is left in the tank going into the Western Conference Finals this year compared to the empty tank that he called it, not me, a year ago.
And that is partially to mind over matter, right? So like part of this is going to be, how tough are you to power through it? Because I think, playoffs are so long. I think that you do have some guys who they're tired, but they give into the tired. And it sort of felt like from what Ant said after the Mavericks series last year, that he sort of succumbed to the tired. You cannot win championships if you succumb to that. Nobody can care. Nobody does care. So yes, I think the Western Conference Finals from just an Anthony Edwards perspective are going to be fascinating to watch based on that fact.
There was a great clip. I think I saw it on the broadcast tonight from the TV set, and I think it made it on socials too. But it was like early in the fourth when the Warriors were kind of threatening there. They kind of made it an interesting game, and Finch had the hot mic on, and he basically looked at Ant and said, "A lot of game left. Like, you have to lock in. Like, a lot of game left." And that's a team in the Golden State Warriors who are without Steph, but have been there and done it, and they know what it takes. And I mean, Steve Kerr's frustrated as hell on the sidelines and whatnot, but you need to lock in. I think that relationship is incredibly interesting to me. I'd honestly pay good money to watch Chris Finch and Anthony Edwards just review film or just review a post-game situation or an off-day situation together. Because I think there's an insane amount of push and pull, but in a good way, not in a negative way. I mean, Jordan had that with Phil Jackson. Even Kobe had that with Phil Jackson. I would love to see that dynamic behind the scenes.
In some ways, could I compare it to a modern day Mike Holmgren and Brett Favre?
You got this
Okay.
kind of eclectic personality that's fun-loving, but's a killer. He's like
And
a
the coach
fun-loving
is like,
killer.
and the coach is like really good as far as X's and O's and knowing exactly what you need to do. And Ant is this, yes, exactly right. He's this fun guy, but he's incredibly talented. It feels a little bit like that because I think at the end of the day, Holmgren and Favre certainly would butt heads a lot, but I think there also was a huge appreciation there from each other of what they gave. It feels a little bit like that.
I like that cross-sport, cross-era comparison. I think that's pretty good. A couple more things here before we part ways from Target Center. Sports Dad, Judd Zilgad, Phil Mackey. It's funny that our lighting looks so much different.
Yeah,
We're
I was
literally
so
standing
confused.
15 feet apart. Let me
I like-
let me turn
And
this
you've
off
got
and see what
the-
happens. Why is it
Okay,
so
that's why.
dark?
Because like on my side here, like behind the scenes, I can see both of the way you guys enter the room. Like I can see like your full horizontal view. Obviously, we're kind of on a vertical view, and Phil looks like the lights are off at Target Center, but Judd looks like he's still got all the lights on. Like and I know you're.
I actually
10
told
feet
him to
from
do
each
that.
other.
I
Yeah.
told them, dim Phil's lights and leave mine on. I've got friends here, and I'm just make me look good. So, like, that's why I look so great right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Boy, all these different computers here. Safeside Barbecue.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'd love to get into some Safeside Barbecue
Oh, my
for a
gosh.
post-game treat here.
Well, then, Phil, I'll tell you all about our friends at Safeside, the West Metro's newest and fastest growing food truck, family-owned, bit business, 100% wood-fired smoking. How does that sound? For juicy, savory, tender meat. No electric smokers, no ovens are used. The menu features, listen to this, classic barbecue dishes like brisket, outstanding brisket, ribs, and pulled pork, everything homemade. The bread is made to order for sandwiches. Ladies and gentlemen, am I tempting you yet? The outstanding. In fact, you can get their food even if you don't go into the tap room or the event that you are at. Oh, look at that au jus sauce. Looks so, oh my gosh, hold on a second. I got to get through this, but I mean, that looks so good. Information where they're going to be available and the menus, which are spectacular, can be found at SafesideBBQ.com, SafesideBBQ.com. A good sauce like that for dipping, by the way, with like brisket and the homemade bread.
Inject it.
I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Talk dirty. Celebrities at the game tonight. You had
Yeah.
Jimmy Goldstein, the long time. You always see him at like Lakers games and Clippers games and stuff. He comes in for the big Wolves playoff games. Old Tom Pelissero from NFL Network, a former colleague of ours. Josh Duhamel, who's like, I think Josh Duhamel is like one of the four big Minnesota, or he's North Dakota, right?
He's North Dakota, technically.
But he's a big Minnesota fan. Are we?
I'd love to trot him out there. But the big tandem, yeah, I'm
Yep.
getting to it.
Yeah.
And the team chemistry building.
I was going to ask you a
courtside.
question about something else.
I was going to say J.J. McCarthy, Justin Jefferson. Were you going in a different
Oh,
direction?
well, I was going to ask you a question on Josh. Are we excited by him being at games still? Like, he's a celebrity, but is he like, he does nothing.
Josh.
No, I'm not saying I don't like him. I'm just saying
I feel like I get.
It
what
doesn't
you're saying.
excite me.
I feel like we've milked it too much. You know, he's North Dakota, so you know, we act like he's one of us, but he's
Right.
He's like adjacent, but we don't have
Well-
enough A-list celebrities or B or C-list celebrities, so we
we treat him courtside here like he is our Jack Nicholson, and it's like no, he's not. He's not at all.
Like Jordan Dye's like our Jack Nicholson. Like I don't even know.
Yeah,
if it's,
dude.
yeah, that's our
Jordan Dye was on his A
that's
game
our
tonight,
Jack
man.
Nicholson.
Jordan Dye is
Yeah.
like, man, he's like waving goodbye to the Warriors bench with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
That's awesome.
He's got the Mike Conley. I think that might be actually Mike Conley's one of his actual jerseys he's wearing.
Sure it is.
But I
yes,
mean,
you're right.
J.J. McCarthy and Justin Jefferson were sitting right by the scores table. Between the scores table and Chris Finch. Chris Finch was like blocking their view the entire game. They're like looking around his hips trying to watch the game. But the team building. And they were talking the whole game too. It wasn't weird.
I can.
It wasn't awkward.
So I did bring the Sports Day field glasses,
Oh, nice. Love
and
it.
I can read lips just a little bit. And I saw at one point Jefferson said to McCarthy, "I did ask to be traded after Kirk left."
But I'm glad I wasn't.
Right. But I did ask to be traded after Kirk left. I was so upset. I never wanted to play here again. But then it didn't happen, and it's all worked out in the end.
Yeah. Did you think they were having so much fun as when Jefferson and Kirk Cousins were sitting courtside for Wolves playoff games 2 years ago? Or wait.
Yeah.
I don't think that ever happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm telling you right now, love to see it. And I also did not see them. This is the only time. I don't know that at halftime, because, courtside, you've got exclusive clubs to go to. I don't know that they left. I think they might have.
You and I both kind of pieced out for like a bathroom break. I grabbed some popcorn, and they were still sitting there. But you know who was performing at halftime was the Red Panda.
The Red Panda. Saw that.
So I mean, if you're
On
sitting
fire.
courtside and you get a
True.
front row view to Red Panda, who I don't think dropped a bowl tonight. She was on
didn't.
her A game.
She didn't.
Yeah.
She was outstanding. Huge pop at the end. Huge pop and MVP chance for her.
She legitimately got the MVP chance.
The MVP chance. Yeah. Unfortunately, we got a lot of chance here tonight, but we did not get any Jimmy Butler chance.
No, we did. Confirmed by multiple Wolves beat writers.
Oh, the "We don't need you."
The "We don't need you" chant.
There
was a "We don't need you" chant.
Oh, I never.
There was a
didn't hear
couple
that.
chants that it was a hard time making them out, and then they'd start blasting music, and it's like, okay. But according to a couple different Wolves writers, the "We don't need you"
Okay,
chant.
I did not hear those.
I'm going to take that as
I heard the Draymond
a
sucks
write
chant.
that down point.
Of course you are. I heard the Draymond sucks chant. I heard Wolves in 5 several times, which was great. I did not hear that chant, though. But you know what? Jimmy Butler, what a weird series. These last 2 games, what was he doing? Like, it's like, dude, just shoot the lights out. Your team's hopeless right now. Shooting.
They said on the broadcast he was sick last game. Like he was battling some illness.
It's
I don't
Okay,
know,
so
man.
let's go through it. So now that the Wolves have knocked out the Lakers and the Warriors, conveniently we're finding out.
LeBron was
I do
almost
believe
dead.
that Steph actually has a hamstring injury. I'll give him that one, right? Yeah, LeBron. Oh, he couldn't make it to the Met Gala. His leg was in such bad condition. Luka was sick for half the games and had other various ailments. He's also just completely out of shape. And the Lakers posted a public job posting for a Lakers strength and conditioning coach, with the job description saying, as part of like the bajillion things you're in charge of, is motivating players to stay in tip-top shape.
Are you serious?
100%. Yeah.
Why didn't? Oh, that would be great. I should.
But it's so funny after these series are over. And by the way, do you think any of these Timberwolves are 100%? Anthony Edwards had his ankle mangled like 3 games ago. He's probably not anywhere near 100%.
But Jimmy especially, right? Like it's always something. It's like, dude, your team can't shoot straight. Like that was their thing. They couldn't shoot. Jimmy Butler had a marvelous game 3. Game 4, he didn't really shoot. And tonight, he did at times, but then he didn't. And it was just
shot 11 shots.
Yeah, a bizarre series for him.
Dude, Brandon Podjemski had twice as many shots as Jimmy. Draymond Green had as many shots as Jimmy Butler. Draymond Green's out. Not that this is optimal offensive strategy, but it's an elimination game, and Draymond Green's like, all right, I'll shoot 6 threes. Let's do it. Let's leave no club in the bag here before our season ends. Yeah, it was bizarre.
I am not one to talk about shooting, especially 3-point shots, but the Draymond push shot 3 is an interesting shot.
Yeah, I was watching him pregame. The comparison is probably Ricky Rubio, where you watch those guys in pregame warmups and they're just cashing threes, just smooth everything, and then you watch him in a game and it's like herky jerky city. But yeah, Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy. I guess he was off the clock for at least this series. Well, I half thought he was going to go bonkers for like 40 points in a couple of these games and maybe steal one and get it back to Game 6. We're never going to know for sure if Steph Curry would have played in Game 6. The Wolves didn't let it get there, which is a credit to the Wolves.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that in a press conference in the next couple of days, Steve Kerr will confirm he wouldn't have played.
Yeah,
he might have been done for the playoffs.
Did anyone ask him? I don't have my Twitter feed open, but I wonder if somebody asked him tonight.
Yeah, that's possible. But I mean,
Steve.
That seems like an end of the season thing where he'll say that it was worse than we acknowledged it or something like that. I'm telling you, at his age, if they had won this round, I wouldn't have been surprised if he was sidelined into the Western Conference Finals because you can't risk it.
Yep, but again, that's what for all the Warriors fans and people like, oh, look how lucky the Wolves got. The Warriors might not have even gotten to the second round if they didn't push a 37-year-old Steph Curry way beyond his regular season minutes limit
Yep.
4 different times in that opening round against the Rockets.
What would have been your thoughts now in retrospect of this whole thing if they had played the Rockets? The Wolves, if they played the Rockets. I'm sorry.
I think, well, the Rockets are not a great shooting team, and we saw I think the Wolves would play such great defense and essentially make the Rockets try to shoot the lights out, which they're not a great shooting team. I do think the Rockets have many more levers that they can pull to generate offense compared to what the Warriors minus Steph Curry. So I think the Wolves would have beat the Rockets in like 6 or 7 games, just like I think they would have beat the Warriors with Steph Curry in 6 or 7 games. Oklahoma City that's the team.
Yep.
That's the real test.
That's going to be a test. No question.
Yeah. So, all right, boys, that's a wrap here. If you haven't already, click that like button, the subscribe button on the Score North YouTube channel. Help us out, grow this thing. And maybe you're new to Flagrant Howls tonight because you were just jonesing for some Wolves content. Well, welcome in. This is your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast now. We're doing post-game shows throughout the playoffs. And we'll talk to you tomorrow when Kyle Teige joins the show. See you guys.